Aquarian relationships. Aquarian relationships. Naturally, we're all being taught through karmic transformations according to Aquarius Pluto transit. We're being taught to ascend to a higher frequency with our relationship terms. And this is not limited to romance. Let's understand that. Because Pluto is passing through Aquarius, it's now the context of relationships. Things are different now in how we have to approach all relationships. The basis of what is changing is that we're unlearning, undoing our misunderstandings and misconceptions about relationships that included our habits and impulses to create attachments. And those attachments have been ongoing sources of generational curses, trauma, drama, oppression, and unhappiness. They were attempts to reconcile childhood crisis in our emotions, manifesting attachments over and over again in all of our relationships. And we hurt each other. We hurt ourselves. We create misunderstandings, division, opposition, a lot of pain, a trail of tears. Women in current times are being caught up to reintroduce themselves as a new concept, a new version of themselves. And that simply means that they are free. They are free, autonomous. They enjoy freedom and liberty, equal rights, and access to resources, practices that allows them empowerment, self-determination, authority, fair access at positions in hierarchy, influence, leadership, so on and so forth. We're in a new chapter with women. As I've explained many times, for women to get there, they had to pass through the lessons of feminism, which really was a catalyst to exercise their emotional authority and intellectual authority concerning their freedom. It's like teenagers. Women have a lot in common with teenagers in this era, and that what they have in common is that they're at the first experience with freedom, their first experience with liberation. And when you are not used to that level of freedom, autonomy, or liberty, there are things you have to learn to go along with it that makes you responsible with it, that makes you productive and constructive with it. And the main thing is accountability. You have to be able to trust yourself and those who you expect protection from, those who you expect support from, those who you expect guidance from. They have to be able to trust you also with your judgment and freedom. If you should be irresponsible with your freedom, lack accountability with your freedom, you oppress those who love you. Because those who love you are the ones who have to clean it up, who have to show up to protect you, cover you, defend you, advocate for you, put things back in order and perspective, support you, so on and so forth. So just like teenagers who they have this urge, this zeal to express themselves through maximize freedom. The maximum extent of liberty they want to experience. How free can I be? Now that I know I can have freedom, I want to test every theory. I want to experience everything. I want to do everything that I can muster to do. It's only human of them to feel that way. It's natural to feel that way. Women have been oppressed for a very long time. They've never had an era where they've had complete freedom and autonomy. And United States of America is where that is maximized to the fullest extent, that women are free. And it's how it should be. But not without accountability, not without consequences. That's where the issue comes in, and that's where trust gets broken. That's where trust becomes an issue. The freedom goes with Uranus. The trust goes with Pluto. The accountability goes with Saturn. Do you understand? As you see in the image, I have Uranus, the freedom. I have Pluto, the trust. And I have Saturn, the accountability. If we can remember these three impulses, the values of these three impulses, we can remember how to navigate and maneuver challenges in relationships. There absolutely must be freedom from here on out. We're no longer in the phase of consciousness where we should have to tell another person what to do and how to do it. If our advice is wanted or desired, our mentorship, our leadership, our help, our support, it's within respect of the free will. Control and domination, sabotaging other individuals because of our impulse behind attachments, wanting to control the outcome of every situation, wanting to control what a person thinks or how they feel, how they interpret what they see or hear. These are things that we no longer can do while expecting success in relationships. We have to let these things dissolve. Uranus, one of the rulers of Aquarius, insists that we honor the individuality of every person, the life path, and the soul urge expression of every person, not getting in the way of it, not blocking them from it, and not sabotaging anyone for our own convenience and sense of security. Every person is a free agent. Every person should be honored and respected as such. And if that is the case, don't choose someone who uses their freedom in ways that does you harm or that causes you frustration. because you don't have the right to change that person. So you have to choose each person as is. Buy here, pay here. We cannot make connections and relationships anymore with a thought in mind, I'm going to change this person. I can change this and I can change that about that person. Oh no, that's not where we're at anymore. You have to pay attention. You have to do the investigating and vetting. You have to stay in a clear mind with who you're vetting, rather it's for business or intimacy, rather it's for marriage or whatever the case may be. You have to know what you're getting yourself into. Because once you get into it, you can't change a person. You cannot attempt to change a person. You have to honor their freedom 100%. This is why we should have learned the lesson that having sexual relations before these things are clarified can be a problem. Getting into bed before these things are understood and agreed upon, it can be a very big problem. Because that's to make intimate connections or attachments even before there is clarity. And what it does is it causes the impulse to want to change someone for your own emotional security because of those ties that are there. And that's unhealthy. Aquarius relationships through Pluto highlights trust. There has to be trust involved. There has to be trust as a non-negotiable. I have to be able to trust you. You have to be able to trust me. Therefore, it's essential that we become trustworthy. Trustworthy. And we have to verify who is trustworthy. That goes back to character, transparency, integrity, communication. There has to be trust. Saturn works with trust through accountability. And accountability is a point of personal authority. When we have inner authority, we have accountability. Because we understand that to use our free will is a part of creation and co-creation. Every time we use our free will, we are creating or co-creating an outcome, a consequence, a result. We are co-creating and creating an experience. So our authority is required to be accountable to that and to show obedience where we have suffered to learn that there are things that we should not create or co-create. There are things that we should not authorize or consent to be created. If it's something that we will complain about, if it's something that we will suffer or make others suffer or complain about, if it's something that will do harm or cause misfortune, if it's something that we don't want to answer to, we should not create it. We should not participate in it. We should not initiate that creation. This is part of being aware of our consent, our authority. Because we don't get to create and co-create a consequence and then say, oh, he made me do it, she made me do it. Oh, it's that person's fault. Well, if you didn't this or if you didn't know, we don't get to do that. Those days are gone. We now have to show accountability for everything that we create and co-create. This is through our behaviors, our words, our actions, everything that forms our character. Saturn is the Lord of character, ruler of the 10th house, as well as the 11th house. So this has everything to do with character. Character affords trust. Good character affords trust. Aquarius relationships, every person needs to come with their own authority. It's your job to have healthy boundaries for yourself. And you should be the first to honor your own boundaries, being consistent with your boundaries. We no longer get to show up formless without boundaries and then grow resent and blow up at the other person for what we failed to clarify. Blow up at the other person because we failed to practice advocacy for the inner child through those boundaries. Speaking up for yourself, clarifying what does and does not work for you, what is good for you and what is not, what is harmful to you and what is not. All of this has to come together. Through Aquarius, relationships can no longer be emotional drowning, emotional overbearance, taking the crisis of your childhood, your emotional overwhelm, and drowning other people in that deep, dark, cold sea of emotional desperation. If you are in emotional desperation, those are things that you have to heal and take care of before you get involved with somebody, especially sexually. I cannot emphasize that enough. We do great harm to ourselves and we do great harm to other people when we get sexually involved with other people without all of these things being healed in the self, clarified in the self. We're making a mess. We also create children to come into the atmosphere and environment of violence and emotional turbulence, domestic violence, hatred and division, competition, vengeance. But where did that all begin? A person who's in an emotional crisis looking for someone else to bail them out of that crisis. A person who has emotional suffering and seeking someone else to relieve them of that suffering. We can't do that. The only thing we can create out of that is attachments, and attachments are no longer going to be tolerated by the forces of this universe. You will suffer very challenging karmic lessons if you should tap into that energy. You will not attach. You're not going to attach yourself to a man, and a man is not going to attach himself to a woman. You will hold your own in your emotional crisis. You will resolve your own issues in your emotional body. This is also a time of autonomy. Through feminism, females fought very hard for independence, equal rights, as they should. And what comes along with that freedom, is self-determination, self-preservation. Because man has made society a strong infrastructure where there is danger, a threat to security. In this day, you can call the police, you could call any public service to take care of matters of security. The father, the husband, the big brother, they used to be the only means of women's protection in society. That is not the case anymore. Single women can move to any community in America and enjoy security, the secure resource, the security resources of the city. If something happens, they can call the police. They can dial security, whose at the gated community. Women no longer have to rely on husband or brother for protection. That's how advanced man has made society. Of course, that's an arguable point to make. It's an arguable point to make. Do women still need men for security, for protection, for covering? Absolutely. But where the lack of clarity is at is women have to be at the level of understanding where they're able to recognize that that is a need. It's just like some women who would say, I don't need no man. Or they have children, I'm his daddy and I'm his mother. He don't need his daddy. Okay? Things of this nature. You may maintain the child, but you can't raise a child without a father. You can maintain it. The father is essential for that, or something will be terribly wrong. So it's an arguable point. It's an arguable need. And you have to be at the level of consciousness to recognize that it is a need. But if your consciousness is so low to where you look at the surface of matters in your experience, you will not even have the understanding to recognize what is a need for you in your life. And I call to witness the smoke detector. Okay? There are plenty of single women who have smoke detectors in the background. You talk to them on the phone, you visit them, or whatever else, that smoke detector is always chirping. I call to witness the smoke detector. That's a sign, it's a proof, it's an evidence that women often do not understand the vulnerability and the danger that they're in. They don't comprehend it. They don't see what their needs truly are. Not for themselves and not for their children. A woman has to be at the level of maturity to understand what their needs are. Is just like a teenager. You leave teenagers to themselves, they will eat pizza, they will eat junk food, they will stay up all night and then go to school the next day after sleeping an hour. Go to football practice, volleyball practice, or whatever else, and do it all over again without the management of parents who insist on their needs. A youth will not have the insight and wisdom to recognize their actual needs. They have to have proper nutrition. They have to have appropriate 8 hours or time of rest, to go to school and learn and be refreshed, playing sports. They're going to break down their immune system. They're not going to be able to comprehend and retain information. Their growth could be stunted in certain ways. It'll affect their mood, their hormones. There's so many different factors. But if you ask a teenager, their arrogance, their ego will override that perception. It will override that outlook. It will override their ability to recognize what their needs are because the ego gets in the way. This is the same way with modern women. They don't see what their needs are. They don't understand what their needs are. They don't recognize it. Their ego is in the way of their perception. So anyway, because we honor freedom, it's not something that you can insist upon them. You need a husband. The children need fathers. It's their free will. It's their option. It's their choice. Understand? Now, freedom has to be honored, and autonomy. Women fought to have that freedom, that liberation and autonomy. So we now are at the place where man and woman is expected to hold their own. Okay? Woman through feminism, they fought for equal rights, for freedom and liberty, which includes their capacity to have self-determination, self-sufficiency, and to source their own security. That is very clear today. It's very clear. For this reason, it's no longer man's responsibility to secure women, to provide for women, unless they are married. Unless they are married. That is woman's job. And even in marriage, there are different terms to negotiate because woman is not who she used to be. She chose to be someone else in her evolution, which is not a problem. But we have to have the awareness of what she chose to honor what she chose. She has the capacity to provide for herself. She has a capacity to secure herself, to think for herself, to do for self. So relationships now are 100% and 100% coming together. A whole and a whole coming together. A free adult and a free adult coming together. An autonomous and an autonomous coming together. Self-sustained and self-sustained coming together. These are two wholes that come together. What attachment would look like is, I'm looking for someone to relieve me of my adult duties. I'm looking for someone to pick up the weight of my natural responsibilities in society, in life, in the home. I'm looking for someone to do the suffering for me. I want to use somebody else's strength and energy, creativity and resources to secure my own reality. That's attachment. We're no longer in attachment consciousness. We are in connection consciousness. Connection consciousness requires you have your own situation that you have figured out. I have my own situation that I have figured out. But here's what we can accomplish together. We can collaborate to achieve this or to achieve that. But I'm not responsible for your foundation. You're not responsible for my foundation. I'm not responsible for securing you. You're not responsible for securing me. I'm not responsible for financing your desires in your life, in your lifestyle, vice versa. So these expectations are predatory expectations in this day because you have every right, every opportunity that I as a man have, you have every bit of it yourself. Should you be moving in together? I don't know. Should you be getting married through the state? You should really give long thought about that if you have something to lose. The family court laws, divorce court, until they change, you should be very careful. You should be cautious about getting married through the state. Because there are still ancient advantages that are given to females that could exploit men through marriage and through children. You could be exploited, very easily exploited. There are predators around here in women, and you should be very careful. Aquarian relationships about collaborations. And when it comes to collaborations, you're not coming together to exchange your burdens. You're coming together to combine resources for a greater outcome for the both of you. To invest resources mutually for a greater outcome. That's a collaboration. But you're not coming to another person with your personal crisis, expecting them to be responsible for bailing you out, for saving you from the misfortunes that you have created in the karma of your life. That's what we're not here to do. Nobody owes anybody that. Nobody's responsible for that, except the self. The terms are friendships, not emotional overbearance. Saturating the other person in love bombing. Constant sowing of expectations and attachments. Domination and control. Fear. Excessive lust. Creating children as convenient weapons and ties and traps. Marriage vows as a way to lure a man in to exploit him for his resources. Treat him any old kind of way once you get the ring. You start getting fat and sloppy and all this other stuff. Your attitude changes. These are things we're not to do. Coming together is now opportunity for greater accomplishments. But that's from the point of two healthy second houses that come together. The second house of every person involved in a relationship has to be healthy in and of itself by that person. You cannot be the source of security and stability to another person's second house unless it falls into attachment. This means that every person is responsible for the condition of their own second house. And we come together at the 8th house to invest from a healthy body mutually. Trust has to be there. Freedom has to be there. Integrity has to be there. Uranus, Pluto, Saturn. It's about shared visions. We are past the days where it's only the man's vision in the picture. It's only the man's vision in the situation. Women now have their own visions. Women now have their own missions, their own projects, their own aspirations and ambitions and goals. And this has to be accepted, facilitated, taken into consideration. And we will be wise to choose others who are complementary in what they already have going on or what they already have a belief in. Complementary. Because what we can't do is tell a person to abandon their own vision for another. That's not where we are at. A free person has their own vision. A free person has their own aims, their own goals, their own ambitions, their own cause. This is why we come together in a complementary sense. You're already going that way. I'm going that way also. Here's how we can help each other while we both are on the way of the same thing. It's complementary. Aquarian relationships have to stay in the air. We can't make each other emotional dumping grounds. You're responsible for your emotional status. You're responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your peace. You're responsible for your emotional security. You're responsible for all of that in and of yourself. So you need to have your own formula, your own practice, your own method, your own approach to well-being. You need to have your own wellness routine, regardless of who you collaborate with, because the other person is not responsible for putting a smile on your face. They're not responsible for making you emotionally secure within. You are. There's no one to blame anymore. It's connection over attachment. We will not anymore in relationships burden each other with our toxic attachments. Now, what also goes with Pluto Aquarius relationship era is that we fundamentally have to establish the understanding that anytime we come together, we are co-creators. It's time to accept it fully, that you are responsible for clarifying the fact that I'm not here to control you, and I can't control you. You are a free agent in this universe. But I have these boundaries so that your creations have limitations in how it affects me. I also need you to understand that whatever you create, you should take account for it. So we have to know how to advocate for ourselves and communicate that if you spill something, the grace in me may help you to clean it up. But fundamentally, you have to understand that you are solely responsible to clean up what you spill. So yes, enjoy freedom, enjoy liberty. But damage control is your responsibility for what you use your power as a creator to initiate into existence. If you create or co-create an experience, an outcome, a reality, a circumstance, the accountability has to be there, because that's the only way that I can trust deep connections with you. We're going deep in connections. Pluto is that Aquarius. This is depth. And if we are going to go deep in our connections, I need to be able to trust that you are going to show accountability for whatever it is that you initiate into existence through your power as a creator. Know ye not that ye are all gods? You can't blame for what your attitude manifests, what your behavior manifests, what your words and actions manifest, what your negligence manifests. It's not somebody else's responsibility. You have to show accountability if you truly want to have free will. It must go with that. And this is a lesson that especially females of modern time are struggling to understand. They should be free, but not without accountability. If they can't learn accountability, nobody is going to want to be in relationships with them. Nobody's going to trust them. They're going to remain single by themselves. The liability, the casualties, the stress, the trauma of passing the buck, it's too much. Skipping steps is too messy. You know what's required when you get into the 8th house. There needs to be maximum clarity. You can't have clarity if you're quick to have sex without establishing clarity. If you're quick to get in the bed and get intimate before there's an understanding. You are becoming a creator of chaos and trauma and drama and pain. And nobody's going to want to take accountability for that. Just assumptions, dodging, and narcissism. And it goes on in cycles. We are past that. And we're not allowed to pretend like we don't know better, because today we do know better. We know better in this era. Females especially have to understand this. If you are going to be truly free, you must be accountable for what you create and co-create. That is what maximizes the trust.